In the world of football, there are a few names that transcend the sport. They become synonymous with beauty, elegance, and sheer footballing genius. One of those names is Ricardo Izexon dos Santos Leite, better known to the world as Kaka. Kaka, in his prime, was the embodiment of Brazilian flair and European precision. He had a devastating combination of speed, technique, and an almost poetic grace. Whether it was gliding past defenders or delivering pinpoint passes, Kaka had a unique way of making the beautiful game truly beautiful. But the question remains, just how good was prime Kaka? And why, despite his brilliance, is he still sometimes overlooked in conversations about the greatest players of all time? To understand Kaka's greatness, you have to start with his time at AC Milan, a club that, at the time, was teeming with legends. Yet, in a squad full of world-class talent, Kaka managed to stand out, not just because of his talent, but because of his ability to completely transform a game in an instant. What made prime Kaka so unique was his ability to change the pace of the game in a heartbeat. Watching Kaka pick up the ball in midfield was like watching a sprinter explode out of the blocks. With the ball glued to his feet, Kaka would drive forward like a man possessed, eating up the ground between him and the opposition's goal with ease. There wasn't a defender on the planet who could match his explosive pace combined with his technical prowess. He didn't need fancy tricks or steep overs to beat his man, just a lethal change of direction and an unstoppable sprint. One of the most iconic moments that captured Kaka's blistering pace came during the 2007 Champions League semi-final against Manchester United. At Old Trafford, with Milan trailing to 2-1, Kaka received a long ball in midfield. What followed next was simply breathtaking. He surged forward, leaving both Gabriel Hines and Patrice Evra in a heap on the ground before calmly slotting the ball past Edwin van der Sar. It wasn't just a goal. It was a masterpiece of pure athleticism, football intelligence, and composure. And that was Kaka in a nutshell, a player who could blend strength, speed, and artistry seamlessly. Kaka wasn't just a driving force from midfield, he was a master of the final third. His decision-making in and around the box was second to none. He had this incredible knack for knowing when to shoot and when to pass, when to take the game by the scruff of the neck, and when to involve his teammates. Whether it was a 30-yard screamer or a delicate through ball that split a defense wide open, Kaka's contributions in the final third were clinical. This is where Kaka's intelligence shone brightest. He wasn't just an athlete, he was a thinker on the pitch. His vision allowed him to see passes and opportunities that most players simply couldn't. When Milan needed him most, Kaka was always there, finding that extra bit of space, that perfect moment to strike, and creating something out of nothing. It was in the Champions League that Kaka truly solidified his reputation as one of the best in the world. In 2007, he single-handedly carried AC Milan to the final. Scoring 10 goals, Kaka was the competition's top scorer and was involved in almost every significant attacking move for Milan. His performances earned him the 2007 Ballon d'Or, beating out Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, both of whom would go on to dominate the award for the next decade. It's impossible to talk about prime Kaka without mentioning the 2007 Champions League final against Liverpool. Milan were on a mission to avenge their 2005 defeat in Istanbul, and Kaka was at the heart of their redemption arc. That night, Kaka didn't score, but he was pivotal in everything Milan did going forward. His vision and intelligence created space and opportunities, and he delivered the assist for Milan's second goal, expertly picking out Pippo Inzaghi, who made no mistake in front of goal. That victory was Milan's 7th European title, but it was Kaka's crowning glory. He had led his team to the top of European football, and for that one moment in time, Kaka was indisputably the best player in the world. The ease with which he glided through the opposition, his ability to read the game 2 steps ahead, He made everything look so effortless. And in a sport where Messi and Ronaldo often overshadowed everyone, Kaka had managed to carve out his own space at the top of football's hierarchy. Beyond his ability to score and create goals, Kaka's playmaking abilities were a joy to behold. He played with a freedom that came from the streets of Brazil, but with a discipline honed in the tactical systems of European football. He was a playmaker in the purest sense, dictating the tempo, orchestrating the rhythm of the game, and making everyone around him better. What set Kaka apart from other playmakers was his ability to combine flair with functionality. He could execute a flashy, no-look pass just as effectively as a simple but perfectly weighted through ball. There was no wasted motion with Kaka. Everything he did had a purpose, and that purpose was almost always to push his team forward. At his peak, Kaka had the power to unlock defenses with a single pass, the precision to put the ball exactly where it needed to be, and the finesse to make it look effortless. Whether it was a long-range strike or a delicate assist, Kaka had a way of making even the most difficult plays seem routine. And that's what made him so deadly. He could beat you in so many different ways. Perhaps one of the most remarkable things about Kaka was his ability to remain calm under pressure. In the big moments, he never seemed fazed. Even when the stakes were at their highest, Kaka had an almost zen-like ability to slow the game down and make the right decision. It didn't matter if he was playing in the Champions League final or a Serie A match. Kaka treated every game with the same level of composure and respect. This calmness came not just from his technical skills, but from his faith and humility. Kaka was a deeply religious man, and he often credited his success on the pitch to his relationship with God. His celebrations, where he would point to the sky in thanks, became iconic. This spiritual grounding seemed to give Kaka an inner peace that allowed him to perform under immense pressure without losing his cool. He wasn't just a footballer, he was an ambassador for the game, someone who played with grace, humility, and an unwavering sense of purpose. Prime Kaka was a phenomenon, a unique blend of Brazilian creativity and European tactical discipline. He could do it all: score goals, create chances, and dictate the tempo of a match. But more than that, Kaka had the rare ability to elevate his team with his presence on the pitch. His driving runs, his vision, and his calmness under pressure made him one of the most complete players of his generation. And yet, despite his undeniable brilliance, Kaka's prime was relatively short-lived compared to the likes of Messi and Ronaldo. Injuries would eventually take their toll, and while he continued to play at a high level 4 years after leaving Milan, he was never quite the same player who had lit up the San Siro and dazzled the world in 2007. When Kaka completed his dream move to Real Madrid in 2009, the world was ready for him to take on a new challenge. It wasn't just any transfer, it was the beginning of the Galactico 2.0 era under Florentino Perez. Kaka's arrival signaled the start of a massive overhaul at the Bernabeu, which would soon include Cristiano Ronaldo, Karim Benzema, and other global stars. Real Madrid fans were ecstatic, and why wouldn't they be? They had just signed the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, the man who had dominated European football in Milan. Kaka was seen as the player who would lead Madrid back to Champions League glory. But the story didn't go quite as planned. And for Kaka, Real Madrid was a bittersweet chapter of his career. At first, Kaka's introduction to Madrid was filled with optimism. The club and the fans believed they had signed a superstar at the peak of his powers. During his initial months, Kaka showed flashes of his brilliance. There were moments where he looked like the unstoppable playmaker who had torn apart European defenses just a couple of years earlier. His elegance on the ball was still there, his vision still sharp, and his passing still sublime. However, the landscape in Madrid was vastly different from what Kaka had experienced in Milan. Real Madrid was a club under immense pressure to succeed. especially given the massive sums they had spent on assembling a team of superstars. For Kaka, this new environment proved to be more challenging than anticipated. Unlike Milan, where he was the undisputed talisman, in Madrid, he had to share the limelight with Ronaldo and other high-profile players. This shift in dynamic meant that Kaka was no longer the focal point of the attack. Unfortunately, just as Kaka was settling into life at Madrid, injuries began to plague his career. What started as minor knocks soon turned into chronic issues, particularly with his knees. These injuries hampered Kaka's ability to perform at his best, and the more he tried to push through the pain, the worse it got. For a player who relied so heavily on his explosiveness and quick bursts of speed, these injuries were devastating. Kaka underwent surgery on his knee in 2010, and while the procedure was meant to fix the problem, it ultimately marked the beginning of the end of his time as an elite player. He struggled to regain the sharpness that had defined his prime years at Milan. The injuries robbed him of that extra gear that had allowed him to glide past defenders with ease. It wasn't just the physical toll that affected Kaka. There was a mental and emotional strain as well. For someone who had reached the pinnacle of the sport, it was undoubtedly difficult to come to terms with the fact that he could no longer perform at the level he was once accustomed to. The weight of expectation at Real Madrid only compounded this pressure. In a team filled with stars, there was little room for patience, and Kaka soon found himself sidelined, not just due to injuries, but also due to the rise of other talents. One of the key factors that influenced Kaka's time at Madrid was the emergence of Cristiano Ronaldo as the club's primary star. Ronaldo was breaking records left and right, and his presence demanded that the team's tactics be built around him. Kaka, once the star at Milan, now found himself playing a supporting role. It wasn't that Kaka had regressed in terms of skill, he was still an incredibly talented player, but Madrid's style of play shifted to accommodate Ronaldo's strengths, and Kaka had to adapt. For Kaka, this was an unfamiliar role. He was used to being the central figure, the player through whom the game flowed. But at Madrid, he had to operate on the periphery, contributing when called upon, but never being the main attraction. It was a difficult transition, and while Kaka remained a consummate professional, it was clear that his best days were behind him. Despite the challenges, Kaka still had moments of brilliance, Madrid flashes of the player who had once dominated Europe. His passing, vision, and technical ability remained world-class, and on occasion, he would remind everyone of why he had been considered one of the best players in the world. He scored crucial goals, provided assists, and contributed to some memorable moments in Real Madrid's campaign. One such moment came during the 2011-12 season, when Kaka delivered a standout performance against Ajax in the Champions League. He scored a stunning goal and provided 2 assists in a 3-0 victory, showing that even though he was no longer the unstoppable force of his Milan days, he still had the ability to change the game in an instant. By 2013, it became clear that Kaka's time at Madrid was coming to an end. Injuries, combined with the emergence of younger players like Mesut Özil and Luka Modric, meant that Kaka's role in the team had diminished. In a move that was met with nostalgia and emotion, Kaka returned to AC Milan in September 2013. It was a homecoming of sorts, a return to the club where he had made his name. And while Kaka was no longer in his prime, there was something special about seeing him back in the red and black of Milan. He wasn't the same explosive player, but his intelligence and technical skills were still evident. Kaka contributed 9 goals in his first season back at Milan and provided moments of magic that reminded fans of the player he once was. Kaka's legacy in football is one that transcends mere statistics. While his prime was shorter than those of players like Messi and Ronaldo, Kaka's impact on the game was undeniable. He was the last player to win the Ballon d'Or before the era of Messi and Ronaldo dominance, and that alone speaks volumes about his greatness. Kaka was a player who played the game with joy and freedom. His smile on the pitch was infectious, and his elegance made him a joy to watch. Even in his later years, when injuries had taken their toll, Kaka remained a beloved figure in the footballing world. Fans admired him not just for his talent, but for his humility, his faith, and the way he conducted himself both on and off the pitch. Kaka's style of play was a perfect blend of Brazilian flair and European discipline. He wasn't just a playmaker, he was an artist, capable of creating something out of nothing. His driving runs, his vision, his ability to score and create goals, all of these qualities made Kaka one of the most complete players of his generation. And while injuries may have prevented Kaka from reaching the heights he could have sustained for longer, his legacy as one of the greatest players of his era remains intact. Kaka will always be remembered as a player who played the game the right way, with grace, intelligence, and a sense of joy that few others could replicate. After his second stint at Milan, Kaka took his talents to Orlando City SC in Major League Soccer, MLS. There, he became the face of the franchise and brought his global star power to a league that was still growing. Kaka's time in the MLS was not about chasing glory. It was about enjoying the game he loved in a new environment. He still had moments of brilliance and was a fan favorite, but more importantly, he brought attention and credibility to the league. By the time Kaka retired in 2017, he had left an indelible mark on football. His achievements, both individual and collective, spoke for themselves: a Ballon d'Or, a World Cup, a Champions League title, and countless domestic trophies. But beyond the accolades, Kaka's legacy lies in the way he played the game, with elegance, grace, and a sense of joy that endeared him to millions. In the grand tapestry of football history, Kaka's prime may have been shorter than some of his contemporaries, but it was undoubtedly one of the most brilliant. Prime Kaka was a force of nature, a player who could turn the game on its head with a single run, a single pass, or a single moment of genius. He was the bridge between the old-school Brazilian flair and the modern European tactical brilliance, blending both styles into something unique and unforgettable. Kaka may not have had the longevity of Messi or Ronaldo, but during his peak years, he was every bit as good as the best players in the world. For those who witnessed his brilliance at AC Milan, Kaka will forever be remembered as one of the greatest players of his generation, a true maestro who played the game with a smile and left us with memories that will last a lifetime.